A Japanese fighter drove his knee straight into Jackie Chan's ribs in front of a jeering crowd that wanted to see the Chinese star crumble. Jackie hit the ground, tasted blood on his lip, and then slowly, terrifyingly smiled. What happened in the next 45 minutes would become Asian cinema legend, a story whispered about for decades. Jackie Chan's fist connected with the jaw of a man twice his size, and the crack was so loud that every person in that Tokyo dojo froze mid-breath. The big man staggered backward into a wooden rack of training swords, scattering them across the polished floor, and Jackie didn't retreat. He stepped forward. What happened in the next 45 minutes would become one of martial arts' most guarded stories, a moment whispered about in Hong Kong film studios and Tokyo fighting gyms for decades, a moment that turned a young stuntman from a former British colony into something nobody in that room was prepared for. But let me take you back. Not far. Just far enough so you understand what was at stake when Jackie Chan walked into that building. It was 1980. Jackie was 26 years old. He'd already broken his nose 3 times, cracked his cheekbone doing a stunt off a clock tower, and dislocated his shoulder falling through a glass awning that was supposed to be sugar glass but turned out to be the real thing. His body was a map of mistakes and survival. He wasn't famous yet, not the way you know him. In Asia, sure, people were starting to notice. His films Drunken Master and Snake in the Eagle's Shadow had torn through Hong Kong box offices, but globally, he was nobody, and certain people in Japan wanted to make sure he stayed that way. Here's the thing nobody tells you about the martial arts world in the early 1980s. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about territory. Japanese martial artists controlled the global image of Asian combat. Karate, judo, aikido, these were the exports. These were the brands. And here comes this kid from Hong Kong doing what? Comedy kung fu? Falling off buildings and making audiences laugh? To the traditional Japanese martial arts establishment, Jackie Chan wasn't just irrelevant, he was an insult. So when a Japanese television producer invited Jackie to appear on a martial arts special in Tokyo, Jackie's manager, Willie Chan, no relation, told him straight, "They're not inviting you to celebrate you, they're inviting you to embarrass you." Jackie listened, he nodded, and then he packed his bag and flew to Tokyo anyway. The event was staged at a private training facility in the Shibuya district. Not a television studio, a working dojo, the kind with scuffed hardwood floors and faded calligraphy on the walls. When Jackie walked in, he was wearing a plain white t-shirt and dark slacks. No entourage, just Willie and a translator named Ken who chain-smoked and kept wiping his glasses. The room was already full, about 40 people, mostly seated on the floor along the edges. Camera crew in the back corner, and standing in the center of the dojo were 3 men. The first was Yamamoto Kenji, a 4th Dan karate practitioner with forearms that looked carved from hardwood. He stood with his feet shoulder-width apart, arms crossed, jaw set forward. The second was Ito Hiroshi, an Aikido specialist who moved with that unsettling calm that Aikido guys carry. You know the type, they look relaxed until your wrist is suddenly bending the wrong direction and you're on the ground screaming. The third man was the one who worried Jackie the most. Tanaka Ryu, a judoka who competed nationally and outweighed Jackie by at least 35 pounds. Tanaka had the kind of neck that started at his ears and just went straight down to his shoulders. No taper, just mass. Jackie sized them up in 4 seconds. I swear this happened. He later told a Hong Kong journalist that he categorized threats the way a stuntman plans a fall: fastest danger first, heaviest danger last. The host of the program was a man named Sato, mid-50s, silver-haired, wearing an immaculate dark suit. He greeted Jackie with a short bow that barely creased his waist. Jackie bowed deeper, because that's who Jackie was, respectful to a fault, even when he knew the respect wasn't coming back. Sato spoke in Japanese, and Ken translated in real time, leaning close to Jackie's ear. He says, "Welcome to the demonstration of true martial arts." He says you are here to show the difference between movie fighting and real fighting. Jackie's expression didn't change, but his hands, which had been loose at his sides, curled slightly, not into fists, just enough that the tendons in his forearms stood out. "Tell him I'm honored to be here," Jackie said. Believe me, he was anything but honored. But Jackie understood something that most fighters don't. The real battle wasn't physical, not yet. It was about framing. Whoever controlled the story controlled the room. And right now, Sato was framing Jackie as a clown invited to stand next to real warriors. The first segment was designed to be humiliating before a single punch was thrown. Sato had set up a series of demonstrations where each of the three martial artists would perform their specialty. Yamamoto broke boards, 3 stacked pine planks, splitting them with a single downward strike that sent splinters into the front row. The audience clapped with genuine admiration. Ito performed a partner demonstration where he redirected a charging attacker and pinned him to the floor using nothing but wrist control and hip rotation. Smooth, clinical, the audience murmured approval. Tanaka executed 3 judo throws on a training partner, and each throw landed with a sound that made Jackie's translator flinch. Then Sato turned to Jackie. Ken translated, "Now, perhaps Mr. Chan can show us what they do in the movies." Get this. That was the trap. If Jackie did a martial arts form, they'd compare it to what they'd just seen and dismiss it. If he did a stunt, they'd call it circus tricks. If he refused, he'd look weak. 3 doors, all of them leading to embarrassment. Jackie didn't take any of them. He asked for a chair. The room shifted. Sato's eyebrows went up a fraction. A production assistant brought a folding metal chair and placed it in the center of the floor. Jackie sat down in it, crossed his legs, and looked directly at the camera. "In the movies," he said through Ken, "everything is fake. You're right. I fall off buildings, but there are pads. I fight 10 men, but they take turns. So let me ask, if it's so fake, why am I the one with all the broken bones?" He pulled up his sleeve and showed a scar that ran from his elbow to his wrist, a steel rod insertion from a shattered forearm. He pointed to his brow where a dent was visible from a skull fracture he'd gotten when a stunt went wrong on Project A. He tapped his right ear. Partially deaf on this side, fell off a tree, hit a rock. The room had gone quiet, and Jackie wasn't done. He stood up, pushed the chair aside, and said 5 words that changed the temperature of the entire evening. "So, who wants to go first?" Now look, this wasn't a sanctioned fight. This wasn't a ring with a referee and rounds. This was live television, or at least it was being filmed for broadcast. There were rules, sort of. Sato had intended light sparring at most, controlled exchanges that would make his Japanese fighters look dominant. What he had not intended was for Jackie Chan to issue an open challenge with 40 witnesses and cameras rolling. Yamamoto stepped forward first. The Karate Man. He dropped into a fighting stance with the kind of precision you'd expect from a guy who'd been drilling the same movements since he was 6 years old. Left foot forward, right fist chambered at his hip, chin tucked. Textbook. Jackie didn't adopt any stance. He just stood there, weight centered, hands at waist level, palms open. To anyone who didn't know what they were looking at, he seemed unprepared. But here's what you need to understand about Jackie Chan's fighting style. It wasn't one style. He'd trained in Chinese opera from age 6, which meant acrobatics, flexibility, and pain tolerance that would make most professional fighters vomit. He'd studied Wing Chun, Hapkido under Grandmaster Ji Han Jae himself, and he'd spent years choreographing fight scenes that required him to understand how every martial art moved. He didn't fight like a kung fu guy or a karate guy. He fought like a guy who'd been hit by all of them and figured out the gaps. Yamamoto threw the first strike, a straight right punch aimed at Jackie's chest. Fast, committed, the kind of punch that breaks ribs if it lands clean. Jackie shifted his torso maybe 4 inches to the left. The fist went past his shoulder, and before Yamamoto could retract, Jackie was inside his guard. Not with a punch, with a palm. He slapped Yamamoto's rear hand down, trapped his lead arm at the wrist, and shoved him off balance with a hip bump that sent the Karate Man stumbling sideways. No damage done, but the message was clear. "You can't touch me." Yamamoto reset. His jaw tightened. He came again, this time with a combination. Jab, cross, low kick aimed at Jackie's lead thigh. Jackie checked the kick by raising his knee, slipped the jab, and caught the cross on his forearm. Then he did something that made the room inhale. He grabbed Yamamoto's punching arm, stepped behind him, and put him in a standing arm lock so fast that Yamamoto was on his toes trying to relieve the pressure before he even understood what happened. Jackie held it for 1 second, 2. Then he let go and stepped back, hands up in a gesture of peace. No aggression, no showboating, just proof. Sato's face had changed. The polished television smile was still there, but something behind his eyes had recalculated. He said something to Ken. Ken hesitated, then translated. "He says that was very impressive movie technique." Now perhaps Ito can show how a real martial art handles such things. For real, that line landed like a slap, calling what Jackie just did movie technique after he'd physically controlled a fourth Dan karate practitioner. But Jackie didn't argue. He just turned to face Ito. The Aikido man was different. He didn't charge. He walked forward slowly, hands extended in that classic Aikido invitation. Come to me, give me your energy, and I'll use it against you. The whole philosophy of Aikido lived in that posture. Don't attack, redirect. Jackie understood this, so he didn't give Ito what he wanted. Instead of lunging or grabbing, Jackie circled. He moved laterally, forcing Ito to turn, to adjust, to chase angles. Aikido works beautifully when someone commits their force in a straight line. It struggles when the attacker won't commit. Ito tried to close the distance. He reached for Jackie's wrist, the classic Aikido entry point. Jackie pulled his hand back and simultaneously tapped Ito's reaching arm downward with a quick Wing Chun Pak Sao. It wasn't hard. It wasn't violent, but it disrupted Ito's balance just enough that the Aikido man had to take a recovery step. Jackie did it again, and again. Each time Ito reached, Jackie deflected and repositioned. It was like watching a man try to catch smoke. The room started to murmur. Some of the seated observers leaned forward. This wasn't what they expected. Then Jackie changed the game. On Ito's next reach, Jackie didn't deflect. He grabbed. He seized Ito's wrist, the exact grip Aikido was designed to exploit, and pulled him forward. Ito's training kicked in instantly. He began to rotate into a throw using Jackie's own grip as the fulcrum. It was textbook Ariminage, and it should have put Jackie on the floor. Should have. Jackie went with the rotation, tucked his chin, and turned it into a roll. Not a martial arts roll, a stuntman's roll. The kind where you absorb the impact across your shoulder blade and come up on your feet 3 yards away, already facing your opponent. Ito completed the throw on empty air. His hands closed on nothing, and Jackie was standing behind him. You could hear someone in the audience say something under their breath. Ken later told Jackie it was a curse word. Jackie tapped Ito on the shoulder from behind. When the Aikido man spun around, Jackie was already backing away, hands raised, that signature grin on his face. But the grin wasn't comedy this time. It was communication. It said, I see everything you're doing, and I have an answer for all of it. Sato stepped in. He was speaking faster now, and Ken had to work to keep up. He says the real test is Tanaka. He says grappling is where movie fighters are exposed. He says cinema martial arts have no answer for a man who controls you on the ground. There it was. The card Sato had been holding all night. Tanaka Ryu, the judoka, the biggest man in the room. The plan had always been to get to this point, where Jackie, tired from 2 exchanges, would face a grappler who could take him down and make him look helpless on camera. Jackie looked at Tanaka. Tanaka looked back, and for a moment, something passed between them that the cameras probably didn't catch. Tanaka's eyes weren't hostile. They were apologetic. This man knew he was being used as a weapon. He knew the setup, and he didn't love it, but he was Japanese. This was a Japanese production, and he had a role to play. That moment of recognition, that tiny flicker of shared understanding between 2 martial artists being manipulated by a man in a suit, is the part of this story that gets me every time. Tanaka stepped forward. He didn't bow. He extended his hand for a handshake. Jackie took it, and the moment their hands connected, Tanaka pulled. Hard. It was a grip-fighting move, designed to off-balance an opponent and set up a throw. In judo competition, it's standard. In a demonstration on live television, it was a statement. Jackie's feet skidded on the hardwood. He was being dragged toward Tanaka's hip, and if that hip got underneath him, he was going airborne and landing on his back with 210 pounds on top of him. But Jackie Chan had spent 15 years learning how to fall. He'd fallen off clock towers, buses, shopping malls, and helicopters. He'd fallen through glass, wood, drywall, and bamboo scaffolding. The one thing he absolutely, definitively knew better than any person alive was what to do when the ground was coming at him. He didn't resist the pull. He accelerated into it. He shot his hips forward, dropped his weight, and turned Tanaka's throw attempt into a scramble. Both men hit the ground, but not the way Sato planned. Instead of Jackie flat on his back with Tanaka in control, they were tangled together, chest to chest, and Jackie had both hands locked behind Tanaka's neck in a clinch that no judo textbook prepared you for. Trust me on this. What Jackie did next wasn't in any martial arts manual. He drove his forehead into Tanaka's collarbone. Not a headbutt, not violent, just pressure. Constant, grinding pressure that forced Tanaka to arch his back and break his own posture. In grappling, posture is everything. Once you lose the straight line of your spine, your throws disappear. Your leverage vanishes. You become a man lying on the floor, and Jackie Chan had been lying on floors professionally for half his life. They rolled. Jackie ended up on top. He posted one hand on the floor, drove his knee across Tanaka's thigh to pin his hip, and looked down at the bigger man. Tanaka tried to bridge, a powerful upward thrust of the hips designed to unseat a mounted opponent. Jackie rode it the way you'd ride a wave on a surfboard, staying loose, letting the energy pass beneath him, and settling right back down. Tanaka tried again. Same result. Jackie's base was unbreakable. Not because he was stronger, because he understood something about his own body that most people never learn. How to make 63 kilograms feel like 120. The room had shifted completely. The murmurs were gone. People were leaning forward with their mouths slightly open. The camera operator had moved closer without being told. Jackie held the position for 5 seconds. Then he did something that nobody in that room anticipated. He let go. He stood up, reached down, and offered Tanaka his hand. Tanaka looked at that hand for a long moment. Then he took it. Jackie pulled him up with genuine effort. Tanaka was heavy, and when the big man was on his feet, Jackie bowed to him. Deep, lower than he'd bowed to Sato, a bow between equals. Tanaka bowed back. Same depth. Sato started talking. Ken translated, but Jackie held up his hand to stop him. "No," Jackie said in English, loud enough for the room. Then he switched to his limited Japanese, rough, accented, but clear. He said he wanted to speak directly. No translator. The room held its breath. Jackie turned to face the camera. He spoke in Cantonese first, then repeated himself in broken Japanese. Then again in English. 3 languages. Same message. Ken later provided the clean translation for the production company, and this is what Jackie said. "I did not come here to prove I can fight. Anyone can fight. I came here to show that martial arts are not owned by one country. Kung Fu is not better than karate. Karate is not better than judo. A man who trains is a man who respects his body and his discipline. What is fake is not the fighting in movies. What is fake is the idea that one style or one nation makes a man superior." Dead silence. Then Tanaka started clapping, slow, steady, his big hands producing a sound that filled the room. One by one, the seated observers joined. Not all of them, but enough, more than half. Sato didn't clap. He stood very still, processing the fact that his carefully orchestrated humiliation had inverted. His fighters had been outperformed. His guest had seized the narrative, and it was all on camera. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because the story doesn't end in that dojo. Sato had the tapes. He owned the footage, and he had a choice. Air the special as it happened, which would make Jackie look incredible and make Sato's production look like a failed ambush, or edit the footage to tell a different story. He chose to edit. The version that aired in Japan 2 weeks later cut Jackie's speech entirely. It trimmed the sparring exchanges to make them look inconclusive. It added commentary suggesting that Jackie had been given special accommodations because he was a guest, implying the Japanese fighters had held back out of politeness. When Jackie heard about the edited broadcast, he was in Hong Kong filming The Young Master. A production assistant brought him a translated summary of the Japanese broadcast. Jackie read it on set, sitting in a folding chair between takes, still wearing his costume. His stunt coordinator, Mars, a member of Jackie's regular team, watched his face as he read. "What are you going to do?" Mars asked. Jackie folded the paper carefully and put it in his pocket. He stood up, walked back to the set, and performed a stunt where he jumped from a second-floor balcony onto a moving truck. First take, no wire, no pad on the truck bed. The crew later said he landed so precisely that his feet hit within a 6-inch target zone. He answered Mars's question by never answering it. He just went back to work. But the story traveled. Hear me out. In the early 1980s, the martial arts community was small and intensely connected. People who had been in that Tokyo dojo talked. Yamamoto himself, the karate man, told a journalist 2 years later that Jackie's hand speed was the fastest he'd ever encountered in a live exchange. His exact quote, "I have fought in tournaments for 12 years. I have never been controlled that quickly by anyone." Ito was more reserved, but he made a comment at an Aikido seminar in Osaka that filtered back through the community. "The Chinese man understood Aikido's weakness before I could demonstrate Aikido's strength. That is the mark of someone who studies with genuine curiosity." And Tanaka? Tanaka showed up at a Jackie Chan film premiere in Tokyo in 1985. No invitation. He just bought a ticket and sat in the audience. When reporters spotted him and asked why he was there, he said, "I came to watch my friend's movie." Think about that. The man who was supposed to be Jackie's executioner on camera called him a friend 5 years later. The unedited footage, by the way, didn't disappear. A copy survived through one of the camera operators, who kept a personal dub on VHS. It circulated through martial arts circles for years. A grainy, wobbly tape that got passed from dojo to dojo, from gym to gym, from one serious practitioner to another. Nobody could verify it was real. Nobody could prove it was fake. It became legend precisely because it lived in that uncertain space between documentation and myth. Jackie never publicly confirmed or denied the specific details. In interviews, when asked about Japanese martial artists testing him, he would give variations of the same response. "I have been tested everywhere I go. That is the life of someone who does what I do. I don't hold grudges. Every person who tests me teaches me something." But there was one interview, a late-night Hong Kong talk show in 1988, where the host pushed harder than usual. He asked Jackie directly, "Is it true that you fought 3 Japanese martial artists on camera and beat all of them?" Jackie's expression shifted. The performer's grin faded. What replaced it was something quieter, something that came from a deeper room inside him. "I didn't beat anyone," he said. "I showed them I wasn't what they expected." That's the line. 14 words, under 15. No explanation needed. And the host, for once, didn't follow up. He just nodded and moved to the next topic. You know what I find remarkable? Jackie Chan could have used that Tokyo footage as fuel for a public feud. He could have called out Sato, demanded the unedited tape be released, turned it into a media war. In 1980s Hong Kong entertainment, that kind of controversy would have been gold. It would have sold tickets, filled columns, generated the exact kind of heat that turns a rising star into a supernova. He didn't. He let the work speak. Between 1980 and 1985, he released Dragon Lord, Project A, Wheels on Meals, Police Story, and My Lucky Stars. Each one bigger than the last. Each one filled with fight choreography so inventive and stunts so dangerous that the question of whether Jackie Chan was a real fighter became absurd. The man was literally risking his life on camera. Every single film, broken fingers, cracked ribs, a hole in his skull that required emergency brain surgery. Real enough for you? And here's the final piece of this story, the part that closes the circle. In 1995, Jackie Chan received an invitation to participate in a Japanese television special celebrating Asian martial arts. The producer? Sato's protege, a younger man named Morimoto, who had been a junior assistant on that 1980 production. Morimoto had seen the unedited footage. He'd kept a copy. And his invitation to Jackie came with a personal letter that said, in part, 15 years ago, you were treated as a joke. You responded with dignity. Please allow me to correct what was done. Jackie accepted. The 1995 special was different. Jackie was introduced as a pioneer of martial arts cinema, a globally recognized star, and, this is the key phrase, a martial artist whose skills have been validated by practitioners across every discipline. They showed clips from his films. They showed the training sequences. They showed the hospital visits, the x-rays, the surgeries. And at the end of the segment, they brought out a guest, Tanaka Ryu. Heavier now, retired from competition, gray at the temples. He walked onto the set and embraced Jackie. No bow, a hug. The kind of hug between two men who shared a foxhole nobody else remembers. Tanaka said one sentence on camera. "This man taught me that pride and skill are not the same thing." The audience applauded. Jackie's eyes were wet. He turned away from the camera for a moment, and when he turned back, the performer's grin was there again. But it was softer. It carried something earned. Now, if you've stuck with this story to the end, you're the kind of person who gets it. You understand that real strength isn't about winning fights. It's about what you do when someone tries to take your dignity and you refuse to let them. If that's you, hit subscribe, because this channel tells stories about people who prove the world wrong, and I've got 100 more of them waiting for you. So what's the legacy of that Tokyo dojo in 1980? It's not about Jackie Chan proving he could fight, although he did. It's not about humiliating Japanese martial artists. He didn't, and he never wanted to. The legacy is simpler and harder than all of that. A 26-year-old man walked into a room designed to break him. 40 people watched. 3 trained fighters tried. And when it was over, the man who was supposed to be humiliated was the only one still standing in the center of the floor, offering his hand to pull others up. That's not a fighter's story. That's a legend's story. And the crazy thing? Jackie Chan went home that night, iced his shoulder, and got on a plane the next morning to Hong Kong. He had a film to shoot, stunts to perform, bones to risk. He didn't dwell on Tokyo. He didn't need to. Because Jackie Chan understood something that most people never figure out in their entire lives. You don't build a legacy by defeating your enemies. You build it by making your enemies wish they'd been your friends. Tanaka figured that out. Yamamoto figured that out. Ito probably figured that out. Even Sato, sitting in his editing suite, cutting footage to protect his ego, even Sato knew. He'd seen the unedited version. He knew what actually happened. And every time Jackie Chan's name appeared on a movie poster in Tokyo, Sato had to live with the knowledge that he'd tried to bury a man who couldn't be buried. That's the weight Jackie left in that room. Not with his fists, not with his kicks, with the way he stood there at the end, breathing hard, sweating through his white t-shirt, and offered respect to men who hadn't offered it to him. I'm going to tell you one more detail. Small but important. When Jackie left that dojo in 1980, he stopped at the door. He turned around. He bowed to the room, not to Sato, not to the fighters, but to the room itself. To the space where martial arts were practiced, to the floor that held the impact of 1,000 training sessions. He bowed to the art, not the men. And then he walked out into the Tokyo night. 63 kilograms of broken bones and unbreakable will, and disappeared into a career that would make him the most famous martial artist on the planet. That dojo is gone now, demolished in 2003 to make room for a commercial building. But the floor it sat on held something for 23 years that no wrecking ball could touch. It held the moment Jackie Chan decided who he was going to be. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most technical, the most impossible to humiliate. And that, my friends, is a weapon no martial art can teach. You either have it or you don't. Jackie Chan walked in with it. He walked out with it. And everybody who watched him that night knew, whether they admitted it or not, that they'd just seen something they would never see again. A man who couldn't be made small, no matter how hard they tried.